Welcome into Emerald and Lilywhite. This is episode 14. This is the fucking worst episode we've ever done, without a doubt. Spurs are coming off a North London derby defeat to Arsenal over the weekend, 1-0 at home, the opposite of what both Max and I predicted. Or maybe you called the draw at least. I think I can't remember. But
I called a win.
yeah, I think I did too. So, yeah, we were both fucked up. Spurs fucked up. Everybody fucked up. And we're here to talk about it. As you know by now, Max is with me at Going Limbs. Max, what's up, man?
Not much. Still reeling from yesterday. It's just a really, really tumultuous time at Tottenham. And, this season's not getting any easier as now we begin starting on Wednesday, 2 games per week, pretty much until December. So buckle up because there's going to be a lot of ups and downs this year, and we might be down right now, but I mean, who knows? A big bounce back win against Coventry, and that's all that I'm on the Coventry. Like
we look forward.
The Bill Belichick. We're on to Coventry now.
Let's go, dude. Yeah. I completely agree with you, man. We're looking forward to Coventry.
Can't wait.
Big opportunity for some lads. We'll get into that, but let's talk about the North London Derby. Obviously, lineup was pretty standard. I think you and I talked about.
You had it spot on.
Yeah,
except we both wanted Johnson off the bench. I think.
Agreed. I wanted Johnson off the bench instead of with Odebear in his stead. But I think the midfield, we talked about Bentancur and those dueling 8-10s, Madison, Kulusevski. Actually thought they were both pretty good in this match, if I had to say so myself. I thought Kulusevski was the most threatening. And I should also admit to the listener, I was driving through South Dakota Sunday, started at 6 a.m., so I was listening to this match actually, right? And catching up after having listened to the match, which it's also sometimes kind of interesting to listen to a soccer match rather than watch it, right? And the different takeaways that you maybe have, obviously, in comparison to people who watched it live. I've got to have some cool conversations there. But yeah, all that being said, I thought Kulusevski offered a fair amount of threat going forward. And I thought Madison was good enough, right? I don't think anyone in this match was particularly good. But I think if you had to say somebody did okay, it's probably Madison for me. Yeah, and Bentancur too.
He was, for me, our best player. Like, he was pretty flawless, in my opinion, at the 6. I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to shout him out right now because we're probably going to rip the squad for the next probably hour at this point. And Rodrigo Bentancur, just know you're omitted from these criticisms because I thought he was really good and really controlled the tempo there and looked like the Bentancur we saw 2 years ago. So shout out to him. As for Matters and Kulu, whatever, man. I don't know. Like they were trying to make stuff happen. Nothing really came into fruition. For me personally, I think Matters was the better of the two, which may be a hot take. I still think he's the one player up there that I'm like, when he gets the ball, I'm actually excited. But right now for Spurs, when anyone gets the ball in the attacking third, it's like, what the fuck are we going to do with it? Like, probably pass it backwards. So, I was fine with them, but I wanna highlight Rodrigo for a really solid performance.
Yeah, get you out, man. He was quiet from the listening perspective, right? Which for a 6 is really good. I think when a 6 is when a 6's name is not heard often by someone listening to a match, that's a very good thing.
Exactly.
See, I got nothing to say in contrast to what you're saying. Defense, fairly standard. I mean, thought Van de Ven and Romero put in okay shifts. There's some school of thought that a Romero could have done a little bit better of a job on the goal, but from the perspective of listening to the match, I think maybe it's Vicario that could have done a little bit more.
It's fair.
Vicario is also on a yellow at this point, which does factor in, right? I think not, and I'm not saying that he would have taken a yellow by going and playing that ball, but there's some hesitancy potentially. He also just kind of struggles with controlling the box, so I don't think the yellow card is the heaviest factor in any of that. But I thought the defense, back to the point, was okay. Poro always looks lively, right? You and I talked about Udogie off air. I think Udogie is a little bit better utilized, and I know you feel the same way because we just talked about it. But when he's not inverting, I don't think Udogie was bad, but I don't think he was good either. I think he just kind of went out and played soccer, is what I would say about Udogie. And then up front, that's where I think we got a lot to talk about, and that's kind of why I saved it for last. Spurs are not creating enough chances, and when they are creating chances, they're not taking them. I don't even think it's worth picking on Solanke because it's his second match.
He played well, honestly.
Yeah. There was a couple chances I think that he maybe could have taken a little bit better, but when
there was one,
maybe a header, but ultimately I think there's nothing much to say about Solanke at this point. It's early days, and he's getting in the right areas, which is all we can ask for from his position in this system. For me, it's on the wings. I think we're really struggling out wide. So we'll talk about Sonny and Johnson here. You and I both thought from a lineup perspective that we'd like to see Odebear opposite of Sonny on the right. Johnson gets a start. Johnson is definitely an Ange guy. That's pretty clear at this point, right? And I don't say that in a bad way at all. Like, I think sometimes like so-and-so guy is a negative connotation that they're maybe not as quality as they should be. But all I'm saying is Ange seems to be in favor of picking Johnson when he's able to, right? Think that can be a whole different conversation that probably takes up an entire separate podcast, right, Johnson? But Johnson and Sonny simply aren't doing enough. Frankly, anyone who started on the wing is not doing enough, in my opinion. But what do you make of what you saw from Johnson and Son?
It's just like what I saw from the entire team yesterday. It's just whatever. It's like whatever. It's like the most boring. Like I it's not even like anyone was particularly bad. It's not even like we played badly. It's just so mid. Like it's the most mid thing I've ever seen. We're just recycling it, horseshoe football. Bringing it back, trying to cross. It doesn't work. It's caught by the keeper. Nothing through the middle. Every time we try and go out through the middle, there's flashes of, oh, look at this like quick footy. Like that's looking great. There's flashes of a good press, but nothing's ever coming together there. The wingers can't beat their man. I think Sonny and Udogie, we just talked about this off air, they're being grossly mismanaged right now. Ange has the personnel. Udogie on the touchline, invert Son. It's how football works. You have one inverted and one on the touchline, and you don't have to invert both fullbacks. We're doing that on the right side because that's where Poro is best. But look, you got two players that would play best in alternate roles. Fucking play them there. We need something. Like nothing has changed. That's the thing. It's not only like this is boring, stagnant, blah, blah, blah. We've been watching this for now all of 2024, and we've just been mid. If you look at our results this entire calendar year, it's just boring mid results. We occasionally have a good one against a mid-table side, and then every single Big Six side we fall short against, and that's on the manager, and his in-game management continues to be dreadful. Timo Werner shouldn't be sniffing the pitch in this match. I don't know how many fucking times I have to say it. Not like anyone's listening to me at Tottenham, but he shouldn't be on the pitch, let alone like, oh my God. It's insane. And then lastly, you got to look at this. Ange has not won a fucking rivalry game. Like, I don't care like how much he wants to say, this doesn't matter. We got to treat every game like it's a fucking North London. Win one, bro. Win one. Win against Chelsea. Win against fucking West Ham, for all I care. Like, you lost to West Ham, drew West Ham. You fucking lost to Chelsea twice, and now you've lost to Arsenal twice, drew them once. You have barely beat any of the other big six if it weren't for fucking Joel Matip putting it into the top bin. Like, win a big game, bro. Like, that's what I'm asking. And that's the most frustrating part, is we can't fucking win big games under Ange. He hasn't shown it yet. And our squad is just looking dead with no creativity. But we didn't play bad. And I just want to illustrate, like, I'm not mad because we played bad. I'm mad because of how boring and how uncreative we're playing. Like, we still dominated the game. And Arsenal were not the fucking better team either. It's just like we have no identity, it feels like.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. I think questions have to be asked. And I'm going to say this. I'm not saying that I think Ange Postecoglou's job should be considered when I say this. I'm not anywhere near Ange.
I'm not saying that either.
Yeah. I think the reactionary opinions that I'm seeing across social media of Ange out, that's absolute garbage in my opinion. And I'm not saying people are garbage or anything. I'm just saying as a club, if we sacked Ange Postecoglou today, we would have wasted hundreds of millions of dollars in players that we brought in for him. And we will be secondly, we'll have all kinds of players that are probably just sick of the circus and are ready to go, like Romero, especially, right? Which we'll get to some of that. But the most important thing is we will be right back to where we've been as a club over and over, and that's flat on our ass. So I'm not Ange out, and we're going to talk big picture too, and we'll get back to some of this, but I'm not Ange out, but I am saying that we need to start asking questions of Ange Postecoglou. I agree with you. I think, first of all, and I shouldn't even say this because I'm a big Ange fan, but there's been tons of conversations since he arrived. Can he do it in the Premier League? It's not the J League. It's not the A League. It's not Scotland. It's the Premier League, right?
Not the fucking J League.
Yeah. And Celtic is a big club, but your infrastructure, you're on another stratosphere when you're in Scotland and you're at Celtic, right? It's like being in Man City in England.
And he got trounced in the Champions League when he was there.
Yeah. So I think there's always been questions asked. Can you do it at the highest level? And I am starting to ask questions. Now, granted, this is a project that takes time, and again, we're getting into the big picture here, so I'll back up for a second. But from a tactics perspective, like you said, Udogie and Son are not being used correctly. Sonny is an inside forward, in my opinion, potentially an inverted winger. They're similar in a lot of ways, right? But him getting inside and inverting is my point. That's where he needs to be, right? I think I say an inside forward because I do think that he is more of an in the box goal threat
and run this way.
Like, exactly.
We're passing it to him, and all he can go is down the line straight away or pass it backwards. We want him going diagonal.
Exactly. We need him in the box, and that's why I call him an inside forward. Is he's a goal threat inside the box. We had an opportunity to break on the counter yesterday. And I believe Nathan A. Clark of the extra inch, who is fantastic. If people are not aware of Nathan A. Clark, wonderful follow at Nathan A. Clark. He broke this down yesterday. We had an opportunity to break, and Udogie's coming up the flank with the ball. In any other year or any other non-Ange system, Sonny is for sure running right inside the fullback and the right center back and going straight towards the near post. In this system, he's running along the touchline. He really can't attack the space behind the fullback because he's tasked with staying wide, right? And Udogie just kind of freezes and doesn't know what to do, ends up giving it to Son too late, who has nowhere to go with the ball, and we just recycle the ball back, around the outside of the box, which we do a lot of in this system. And that's not the sign of a team that wants to go win trophies, in my opinion. When we're like unsure of what to do in a simple counterattack, and basically what I saw from Sonny and Udogie in this instance is both just like seeing something that was maybe there, but they're not tactically instructed to take it right. That's just what it felt like to me. So when I watch it back, and so what you're saying about those two being utilized incorrectly, I agree with, and I think there's an example of that right there. I also think we put so much dependence on the wing in this system to be the wings being super dynamic and able to take on their man in a one-on-one situation. I think Odebear can do that, and that's where it stops for me. I don't think we have another winger, Mikey Moore, dare I say.
That's what I was gonna say, and
Yeah,
I've
I
been
think he's
saying
the
it
other
all
one.
year.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Mikey Moore here shortly, especially when we talk about Coventry. But I asked the question in a group chat today that I'm in: when is it time to give Mikey Moore a chance, even in the Premier League? Because at this point,
2 games ago,
we don't have anything at all from the wings, and the system needs those wingers to be dynamic. Neither of them can do anything from the perspective of getting inside because they're not able to. Johnson is struggling, I think, to get in behind the man, and I think some of that is what we've talked about, that he's maybe better off the bench anyways. And Sonny's just never been a touchline winger ever in his career. We're wasting Sonny. So yeah, there's a lot Ange needs to work on. There's a lot of questions that I think are worth asking of Ange.
And his substitutes, bro, like it's just too little too late every time. Like, why aren't we seeing Lucas Bergvall in this game? Like, genuinely, like I just don't get it. Like Timo Werner, I just can't understand where he's coming from.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there's questions of the in-game management. I think there's set piece questions.
Is there? Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
it's Vicario too. It's
for sure. Vicario's got to attack that ball for their goal. There's no question about it. That's his ball. And if I'm one of his defenders, I'm turning around, and the commentary said this, but I'm turning around and looking at my keeper and saying, bro, what are you doing? You got to come get that ball, right? That's on the keeper in that situation. And Arsenal knows how to attack Vicario. It's clear, right? That was a well-designed set piece.
That's all they fucking do is score set pieces. Like
exactly.
They put 10 men behind the ball and they score a fucking set piece like it's Sean Dyche in 2016, and that's how they're competing for titles. And like I gotta figure it out, dude. Like we gotta figure out how to grab the ball in the box. It's been a year now we've seen this. We got knocked out of the FA Cup last year against City. Same fucking deal. Maybe he got fouled. I don't give a fuck. He needs to grab the ball, dude.
100%, man. Yeah, and I also like, I want to see in-game adjustments made from a tactical perspective too, and not just. And I know you're saying this as well, but not just from the perspective of substitutes. Change something.
Anything.
There's all kinds of stuff that we can talk about, right? We're not Premier League soccer coaches, so I'd like to think Ange has more ideas at least at his disposal than I do. And I just don't see it. So Ange has a lot to work on. Like you said earlier, I think we've been figured out since about match week 10, 11, 12 last year, if we want to say. And that's not me being reactionary. That's me just watching Tottenham, and it's clear that we've been figured out. I think I said it a bunch last year, but if you find a way to negate those inverted fullbacks, which Udogie is not very difficult to negate in this system because that's not his skill set necessarily. Porro definitely gives the opponents a challenge, but if you can negate those inverted fullbacks and box those wingers to the touchline, which is what Arsenal did really well, you're going to beat us. We're not going to be able to create chances, and you know that you're going to have acres of space to get into on the break. It's pretty simple or simplistic tactically when you talk about how to beat this Tottenham team, unfortunately. So yeah, a lot of questions to ask. Let's talk big picture though. I think we've already gotten into some of that. Ange out and all of that, it's clear where we both stand as far as Ange Postecoglou's job security. But Spurs, I think, have a lot to figure out still. Now, I think we all hear things like we're in the early stages of a project and we need to give a project time. I agree. Klopp, Arteta, you name it, Pep even took them 3 or 4 years to really cement what they were doing. It's easy to forget those years in the early days of those tenures, right? So it takes time, but I think, and this was brought up on another podcast by a good friend of mine yesterday. Spurs fans have been sold on a project for a long time. And I've been one of those fans that have heard the project. Pochettino, we all know how that project ended and the reactionary decisions that were made in response to Pochettino's project ending probably hampered the club more than anything, right? But here we are staring down the barrel of another project. And it's tough as a Spurs fan to stomach that and say, here we go again, right? But if we don't buckle in for this project, in my opinion, we're going to find ourselves right back in the same situation 18 months from now. It's something that has to be seen through. And I think we can ask questions about Postecoglou like we have. Will his tactics hold up in the Premier League? Can he make enough? Can he make adjustments well enough to be able to compete? You know, what gives? Those are all questions that are still going to be continued to ask. And it's not going to be a project where we just step back and say, okay, well, in 4 years we'll be winning Premier Leagues because that's how projects go. It's going to take a lot more than that at Tottenham Hotspur, right? We're never gonna have the same tools at our disposal as a Man City or a Liverpool or an Arsenal, right?
So I wouldn't say Liverpool in that group.
Yeah, fair enough. They've got a lot going on, but when I look
Klopp
at
did it without spending.
You're right. That's a good shout. We won't even bring up Chelsea. It's laughable at this point. But you know, when we talk about those clubs that have had successful projects, they've had a lot of money and weight behind those successful projects, or Jurgen Klopp, right? So I love Ange, but he's no Jurgen Klopp. So it's gonna be a challenge for us to get to a point where the project pays off, but I don't think we have a choice.
Yeah, we have too many good young players to do anything. Like, if we were to sack Ange, even at the end of the season, if it went really poorly, like, we have too much fucking talent in the system right now for us to do that. That's so risky. We risk them leaving. We risk everything. We risk everything we've built to this point. Like you said, so much money has been put into this. It's like we have to see it through. And as for the wing position, like we got to give Yang a shot when he comes in January. Like we got to do everything we can to make this a competitive team. And we're going to see like what this team is really made of over the next couple months leading into January. And we'll have a lot better big picture like thoughts by then, because during this time last year we were kind of like riding the high, like we were good. No European footy, no cups. We were like, okay, this is awesome. And at that point it will have been a whole year in which we haven't seen the best footy out of Ange's squad, but we know that we have, like, I'd say 3 or 4 of the most exciting teenagers in Europe on our team. So we kind of have to see what happens with them. And that kind of leads me into this other point of people whining and crying about signings and we're not spending, or we're leaving so much money on the bench. Like, you look at Bergvall, Gray, Odebear, all on the bench. These dudes are 18 and 19. Like they're not signed for right now. And I know it's annoying that we didn't bring in enough senior footballers, but like, these aren't going to be our saviors in the North London Derby. You got to look at the senior players. Yeah. And unfortunately, Brendan Johnson at the age of 23 signed for 50 mil. He is one of those guys that you're like, okay, you got to be good right now. And that's why he's getting so much backlash and why his performances are more disappointing. even if I don't know, maybe he is doing as well as Odebear would do, but we gotta wait for those guys, and it's just unfortunate that someone as young as Brennan is getting all that hate and backlash because he is supposed to be the winger. That's like, okay, we bought this guy, Ange bought this guy, he's gonna be our winger right now. And these other guys, it's like, wait, pause. If we had marketed Johnson as, look, he's gonna be our winger for the next 4 or 5 years, but it's going to take some time, we would have a completely different perspective. So it's just all about how we view the players. And a lot of the players that we had bought before Ange's stay are the ones that are playing in the team. And a lot of the players that we have bought while Ange has been here are the young ones that haven't really broken into the first team. So we can't really make judgments on that, because you win some and you lose some. For every Mickey Van de Ven, there's a Brennan Johnson. And that's just how it works. We just got to be patient. It's a rebuild. Like we said it last year in our season preview, last summer when we were covering it. We've pretty much been here the whole Ange reign we have, and we're like, look, it's a rebuild. We have to tell ourselves it's a rebuild. When we started this rebuild, we're in the mindset 2 or 3 years, and then we're going to be up there. And like, I think last season, the beginning may have hindered Ange's tenure, honestly, because it set our expectations so high for what could be achieved so early in the project that now we're looking like it's a year later and we're not any better. We're actually worse. So that's just the perspective of a lot of fans who are more reactionary.
Yeah, it's a couple of good shots here I want to highlight. One, I do think those 10 games hindered Ange. And I think that was nothing more than the league being gobsmacked, just absolutely thrown off by his system. It's absolute insanity, just pure chaos the way he plays. And nobody was ready for it. And again, we smacked a couple people in the face from the shadows, right? And they figured it out, and we struggled ever since then. So I agree with you. And then the Brennan Johnson piece, double click on that, because it's a good shout about the fact that he's still fairly young, but seen as this more senior guy who's supposed to be ready to go right away. And he's a Welsh international, and we expect good things from him. I'm not giving him a pass right now, but I think he needs to be better. But I also think you make a really good point. And as far as the vitriol that he's received on social media, I like to think that nobody from our Seattle crew is involved in that kind of stuff, right? But I would hope not. That kind of stuff is just pretty shitty. I know footballers live this lavish life, and they have wonderful privileges that us common folk don't always have, right? But they are people, and they're going to work every day, and they fuck up sometimes. And I don't know. I just think there's better things to do with people's time than direct hate at people. Just try to be a nicer person is maybe my rant, but I hate seeing that shit, man. And it sounds like Brennan has maybe deactivated his social media, right, because of all of that.
Yeah, he has. And the dumbest fucking part about all that is like the dude wasn't even bad. Like he was fine. Yeah. He's just fine. Like that's the thing. And it's like our fan base is, I don't know if it's Twitter. It's Twitter. Yeah, it probably is Twitter. But I don't know if it's what we've gone through like the past 5 years, how much like turmoil, turnover, like how our brains have been wired to like just want to sack every manager we get and just mug off every player that doesn't score like just relax. Like I don't understand. Like I'm mad. We're both mad. We're both upset. We've both ranted on this podcast, but we also are mature enough to understand the greater situation of the club. And it's like these people, like, what do you want? The instant gratification of us like selling Brennan Johnson and sacking Ange? Like, what are you getting from that? Like, we're not going to be in a better spot if that happens, like you said before. And it's just ridiculous. Like the social media backlash and outrage that has gone on. That is like misguided, I'd say, because there's certainly valid critiques like we've highlighted for the past half hour. But like the ones that are just like, fuck these guys, it's like, bro, like you just either you don't like Tottenham or like you just don't understand the like how to build a project. It's one of those two things. Like I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's first of all, it's sports, and somebody wins, somebody loses most of the time, right? So if you can't handle the opposite of big wins, then sports may not be for you, right? Because it's always going to be ups and downs. It's life in general, right? Now, I think we've talked about this. I think Spurs is a bit more of a shit show with regards to the fan base, and I will say this too. I agree with you. A lot of it's just Twitter, and a lot of it is people who are probably bigger fans of farming engagement than they are of Spurs, right? For sure, that's a big part of this. It's also just a very small snapshot. Like Twitter will be on fire, and then the whole stadium singing Ange Postecoglou's name at the next match, right? So it's very different things we're talking about in stadium fans versus Twitter. But I think, anyway, Spurs is sometimes a little bit more of a shit show, and we've talked about this because we're so close, but we just can't get there. It's like a metaphor would be like you're climbing Mount Everest, and you're like just like 100 feet from the top, and all these hikers keep passing you, and you can't like get past this one point in the hike, and people just keep passing you and keep passing you, and you're just sitting there. And after like years of getting beat up like that, I've said it's easier than being a mid-table League One club, or sorry, way more challenging than being a mid-table League One club, right? Being very, very much close to the top and not being able to get there. So I think some of that is why Spurs fandom is always a bit of a shit show too, but it's all just a lot of whiny people on social media, probably more than anything that we're seeing. Because like I said, the fans of the stadium seem to always be behind the club.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, so again, Ange has a lot of work to do. We're behind him. That's kind of the Cliff Notes version of this, right? We don't think he's been great. Again, has a lot of work to do, but we're fully behind the dude. And obviously, as massive Spurs fans, we want nothing more than for things to go well, and that'll only happen if we just stay the course and calm down.
And I just want to add one last thing, like about the reaction to this game. I think it's so severe, and normally, like I feel like I wouldn't be as harsh after a game like this where we dominated the game. Like, look, they had possession. The number was in the 30s. We had 67 or something. It's like last season we lost 3-2. We were down 3-0 at half. I was not as upset as I am now. And that's because you look at that Arsenal team and you look at the team that we put out. You look at those two starting 11s, and I don't know if I can look myself in the mirror and say that Arsenal team is better than the team that we put out, because I fucking think that we had the better team. Like, I think we had the better players on the pitch, and that's where it's like you have to look at the manager, because we had the more talent in that game. Particularly, they're missing two of their three best players. And you look at those two 11s, and there is no way I could convince myself that Arsenal had the better team, because they didn't. Dude, and it kind of showed, but we should have won. Like and you have to win that game, especially at home.
Yeah, there's two positions on that field where I think they have a better player, and it's Saka over Johnson, and it's Raya over Vicario, and that's it for me. And I think that's a little harsh on Vicario, but I think Raya's a good keeper. And
I don't know. I think Timber was really good. That's my take on the game. I think Timber was solid.
I wouldn't disagree with that. He's come in and looked really good quickly for them. But yeah, overall, I mean, they have great center backs, but we have absolute class center backs.
Yeah.
Midfield, we wipe that clean. And Sonny and Solanke for me over Martinelli and Trossard.
Easily. It's not close even when you put it that way. So it's
but they're just frankly a better team. You know, they are.
They're a team. They're
5 years into the project that they've undergone. You know, that's a huge piece of it too. Arsenal is just ahead of us, but we'll get there. And that hurts because in the Pochettino days, we were 5th in the league. And then he came in and he won 3 league titles. And then he won 3 Champions Leagues. And then he won 3 FA Cups. And then he won 3 Champions Leagues. And then he won 3 FA Cups. And then he won 3 Champions Leagues. And then he won 3 FA Cups. And then he won 3 Champions Leagues. And then he won 3 FA Cups. And then he won 3 Champions Leagues. And then he won 3 FA Cups. And then he won 3 Champions Leagues. And then he won 3 FA Cups. And then he won 3 Champions Leagues. And then he won 3 FA Cups. And then he won 3 Champions Leagues. And then he won 3 Champions Leagues. And then he won 3 FA Cups. And then he won 3 Champions Leagues. And then he won 3 FA Cups. And then he won 3 Champions Leagues. And then he w that was flipped. North London was firmly white for a good 4 or 5 years, right? And
Even after Podge, like we didn't lose
yeah,
North London Derby at home. Like
yeah,
this is a new
exactly.
thing,
Yeah,
and
it's a
I
Postecoglou
fucking
thing.
can't get behind it. Like it's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
especially when Arsenal's in the title race, like we can't take 2 points off them. Like come on, guys.
Yeah, good shot.
With a
Yeah,
better squad or a
yeah,
better starting 11 at least.
yep. All right. Well, I guess all there's left to
Coventry.
say. Yeah, I was just gonna say there's only one thing left to say. That's fuck Arsenal, and let's move on to Coventry. I'm excited, man.
I'm hyped.
I'm stoked. It's time for not only a competition to start that I really think we can win, which I don't consider the Premier League one of those.
Not anymore.
Now, it's bold to say that after the conversation we've just had, but I do think that it's possible. And this is an opportunity for us to right the ship, calm down a little bit, go out and play a good match of football, get a win, move on in the competition. In a cup competition, only thing that matters is the score line. In golf, they say we're not drawing pictures, we're just writing numbers, right? And I think it's similar here in the Carabao Cup. There's just a score at the end of the match, and you should have more than the other team, and that's all I care about in these cup competitions, right? So go out and get a win. I, like you, and I'll pass it over to you to start talking about this, but I'm probably most excited about some of the names that I think we might see get an opportunity to maybe start, but at least feature in this match. So what names, if any, stand out to you as guys who may get their first start for Spurs?
Yeah, so I was mapping out my lineup for this game. It's Coventry away. So like unlike last year where we played Fulham away and changed the entire team and we're playing the likes of Solomon, Sanchez, Højbjerg, like that team was shite. This year are a lot more exciting, better, and Coventry is worse than Fulham. So I have Forster in goal. Like I don't really care. It could be Austin, it could be Vicario, whatever. Just whoever in goal. But like I think Spence plays at the right back for sure.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if he wasn't starting. Dragozin has to start. Cuti Romero whining, crying on social media. I mean, increasingly likely that he leaves the club soon, if we're being honest. As for left center back, I mean, I'd be fine with Davies, but I mean, I'd definitely keep VDV on the bench. I might have started him if he wasn't coming off an injury, but I got Davies there. I'm just putting Udogie there. We don't really have an option. I hope to God that I don't see Sergio Reguilon out there. Midfield is lit. Gray, Sar, Bergvall should be it. Just rest the other dudes for Brentford. And then up top, start Solanke, dude. He hasn't got enough match time for us. He needs to get in the goals. He will. If he plays this game, Odebear, lock down one of those wings, let him cook. And then it's Mikey Moore on the right or it's Johnson. And I'm kind of leaning towards Johnson because if he's going to get his confidence back, it's going to be in this game. So I feel like Johnson, Solanke, like if we can get those two guys goals, get their account open for the season, that would be awesome. If that's not working, then get Mikey Moore on as soon as you can. You can feature Will Lancashire if everything's going well. And if we really need to get stuff back, we can always have Matters and Kulu and Vicario and Sonny on the bench. If something goes awry with the defense or Udogie needs a break, just put Davies at left back or Van de Ven, one of those two. And then for Spence, I think Porro, just rest him. If he needs a sub, slide Gray out to right back and then put Bentancur in. And I'm just operating on the assumption that Basuma and Richarlison are not available.
Yeah, I like everything about that lineup. I wouldn't mind if Van de Ven started at left center back with Davies at left back. I'd like to see what Davies can do in this inverted system a little bit more. I think maybe fairly well. I don't want to, like my buddy always says Ben Davies is good for a 6.7 every match, and I totally agree with that. He's just like kind of your standard, just decent player, right? So I think I'd like to see him maybe at left back with Van de Ven at left center back, and it's tough on those hammies. But we got to go out and win this match, and I don't think we can turn up our nose at anything at this point. So yeah, I'd like to see Van de Ven potentially midfield. I totally agree. I think that picks itself. Those three in Gray, Saar, and Bergvall. Odebear for sure. Solanke, completely agree.
Solanke has to play. I'd be pissed if he
It'd be such a miss if he didn't. This is not only the chance for him to put the goal in the back of the net and get that snowball rolling. He also, just like you said, he's only played 2 times, and he needs to continue to get reps with this team, right? So it's a no-brainer for Solanke. And then I agree with you. I think my heart would like to see Mikey Moore start, but my head says that Brennan Johnson is the right move in this match for the similar reasons to Solanke, like you said. But regardless of what we see, I expect nothing less than a firm victory in this match.
I agree.
We have to go out and go for blood in a game that needs to be taken very seriously. We saw what Coventry did to Man United in the semis last year of the FA Cup, and I'm not saying that they're some crazy threat, but they're a decent team. And Haji Wright, little baller out there on the left wing for them, right? So
I don't rate him.
Yeah, no. Gotta get the American bias in, but yeah, I think that would be a super solid lineup, and I expect Spurs to go out and call it a 3-1 victory. I'm never going to bank us for a clean sheet ever, but I could see us, scoring 3 or 4 goals. I think that'd be really good for the squad as we move forward. So
I'm going to bank us 4-0. Give me a Solanke brace. Give me Johnson goal, and give me Mikey Moore off the bench.
I love it, man. Mikey Moore, let's go.
And give me a couple assists for Lucas Bergvall.
All right. You heard it here, folks. I think it's bold picking a clean sheet in a Postecoglou system, but sometimes you got to be bold. So I like it.
We need it so bad.
Yeah, we do. No doubt. So a lot to look forward to. Football coming thick and fast, like you said earlier. 2 games a week for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Can I read our schedule? Because
please.
It's not getting any easier. And I was looking at it, the league especially. So we go Coventry away, Brentford home, Karabag home. So that's our next week. We have to win all 3 of those. Agree?
Yes,
all 3 must win. After that, it's tough. So we go United away. We go Ferencvaros. Who knows where that is? We go to them. So that's going to be a trip. Then we go Brighton away. Then we go West Ham, a derby home. Then we have Alze Alkmaar. Troy Parrott just scored a fucking golden sombrero for them. We have them at home. Then we got Palace away, Villa at home, Galatasaray away. And that is taking us to November. And that is a tough stretch, playing 2 games every week with all those league games that are not easy. When you look at United away, Brighton away, then at home you got West Ham and Villa, and then even Palace away is tough. And then throw European trips in there. It's going to be brutal.
Well, and frankly, if we're talking these league matches, Spurs have taken 4 from the first 12 available points, if I'm not mistaken. Which is very poor. Not the start you want in the Premier League, which gives absolutely zero margin of error. With the level of quality that we face.
We're 5 points back of 4th place already.
Yeah. And we're closer. I believe we're closer to relegation than 4th place at this point.
We are.
And that's, again, we're 4 matches in. So I'm not saying that Spurs are in relegation threat. I'm just saying it is closer to the bottom of the table than the top. And frankly, if you look back over the span of, as you said earlier, the calendar year, doesn't look good. The first half of the season in Ange's first season made last season a little bit more tolerable. There's no way we got 5th place, right? And that looks pretty good in the first year of the project, but we took 27 points from the first available 31.
We were in first in like November. Like
we were eight wins and a draw through our first 9 matches, which is 25 points from your first available 27. That's absolutely insane. And that's why we get 5th place. That's the only reason we got 5th place last year. So yeah, it's going to be tough, and I expect, unfortunately, some drop points in those runs. And that's where I say put everything into those fucking cups, because if we drop points, get knocked out of a cup, drop points in a 3-game stretch, it's going to get super nasty around Spurs. Getting knocked out of a cup would be punishing for Ange Postecoglou right now.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate this. I think that my biggest issue, along with like lack of adjustment for Ange, is what I said earlier. It's like, what is the biggest win since Ange has come in? It's like a 2-2 draw away at Arsenal is like, or like 4-0 to Villa and we still finished below them. Like, it's like we need a statement. Like one of these games, or we need a statement win from Ange.
I mean, against the top 6, he's taken very minimal points in his tenure.
It's been United, Liverpool wins, Arsenal, City, draw.
Yep.
United draw, and then lost to Chelsea both times.
Yeah.
Lost to Arsenal and City once.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, not abysmal, but not great if you're going to try to win the league. So again, it's going to be tough. Early days. We'll get through it. But yeah, looking at the short, it's Coventry. We both predict wins. Let's go and get it done. Closing out the pod here, brought to you, of course, by our friends in Finney Ridge at the Wits Ends. We want to cover the academy briefly. There's probably not a ton to talk about right now, if I'm being completely honest. We just came off of a break and have played 1 match, but anything from an academy perspective that you want to cover before we close the show?
I don't believe that the 21s have played yet.
I don't believe so either since the break.
So honestly, no, I don't really have anything. I was like not really tapped into. I wasn't even after that game. I was like, okay,
no doubt. And the only thing I would say from an academy perspective is Coventry again. We're gonna have an opportunity to see some of those guys, and I'm getting to the point where it's going to be relevant to talk about the academy a little bit more as things continue to progress. And there's just a couple of names, probably, namely Mikey Moore and Will Langshire, that you'll start to hear probably more of if you're a listener of the podcast, right? As we get deeper and deeper into the season and things get thicker. But pretty quiet on the academy front. And then, of course, brought to you by our friends down in Puyallup at Cascades, our Loan Watch. Not much to cover here either, other than pointing out. Yeah. So talk to me about Brian. What do you got?
Ryan Hill, Girona Player of the Month for the first month of the season. He's cooking again.
Always like clockwork.
That's all I gotta say. And as for academy / loan, let's do a double. Luka Vucevic, I believe, bagged a goal for Croatia and bagged a goal for his club in the last week. From center back, mind you. Yeah, for Westerlo, where Alfie Devine is there as well now.
Yep.
So, dude, Luka, he's a talent, and Ange knows it. He dropped him in a press conference a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, don't forget about him, because he was signed, I think, even earlier than we signed Bergvall. So it's been a minute. It's been a minute, and he's kind of fallen under the radar, but we're going to be getting him next summer too. So, yeah, just keep an eye on him.
Yep. Yeah. Like we've talked about, it's early days of a project, and we're building an army of young talent at Spurs right now. It's super exciting. So if you're still listening to Emerald Lilywhite in 4 years, appreciate you. and look into our future selves. We may be having some fun conversations about some of these
What's
guys.
our 4 years lineup look like? We got Luca and Ashley there. Destiny. Who
Yep.
knows
Destiny and
at right back? Poro.
Yeah.
Is he
Yeah,
still
he's all
young
right.
enough? Yeah, he's
Yeah,
fine.
I think he's 26 or something like that.
And
So
then midfield we got Archie, Lucas, and Pop
Sar.
Sar.
Yep.
And then up top we got Mikey, Will, and Wilson.
Odebear. I think so, man.
Yang off the bench. Who knows?
That's nasty, dude.
That's
Yeah, you never know.
And then we still got Alfie Devine, Jamie Donnelly, and then Leo Black, Tyrese Hall. Like, think about the amount of talent, and people want to sack the guy that's like convinced these players to come here. Like, can't be doing that.
Yeah, 100%, man. Well said. Yeah, and then the last thing I'll say about loan watches is he's certainly not on loan anymore. But you already mentioned Troy Perry just absolutely balling over in the Netherlands for AZ Alkmaar. I'm not saying that I regret him leaving or anything like that. I'm happy for him. I think he's at his level and he's playing really well at his level.
4 goals in one game.
It's nuts, man. I mean, they put up 9, so
They did.
You have to consider the quality of the opponent at that point. But 4 goals is 4 goals, and I believe 3 of them were in like a 16-minute period, or something like that. So yeah, shout out to Troy Parrott. He's no longer one of us, but will always be one of our own for sure. So wish him all the best. And but yeah, I think that's probably it. I don't have much else to talk about. It's
just roll clip of me in episode 1 saying we should give Troy Parrott another shot and sell Dane Scarlett. But we'll see him later this year. It'll be exciting.
No doubt. We'll look forward to it.
And I said every Troy Parrott goal he scores against us, I'm buying a listener a scarf. Remember?
You don't gotta worry. You don't gotta worry about that, man. Your wallet is safe.
So we'll see. We'll see if he bags against us. So
he probably will.
Yeah.
He'll 90 plus 1 winner. But yeah, anyways, we'll see. Yeah, it was a tough one, folks. After that defeat, obviously you always want to get on and talk it out, right? But at the same time, I kind of felt like fuck Spurs after that match too, right? So, but we're glad that we made it work, and we appreciate everybody who's listened. For myself, for Max, for all of Seattle Spurs, you can find me at Scotchy Bird. You can find Max at Going Limbs. You can find Seattle Spurs at Seattle Spurs, and you can find the podcast at And Lilywhite. Make sure you like and subscribe. Check us out on YouTube, of course, which is our primary platform. We appreciate all the support. We appreciate everyone in Seattle who gets out to the bars. That is, of course, as always, the Wits End in Finney Ridge and Cascades and Puyallup, our 2 homes. If you're on the north side, catch us at the Wits End. If you're on the south side, catch us at Cascades. We are one Tottenham Hotspur of the sound here at Seattle Spurs, right? So, again, for myself, for Max, for the whole and Lilywhite crew, for all of Seattle Spurs, we appreciate everyone who's been here with us. And come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.